Hi guys, welcome back to BLAK Interiors. For those of you new to the channel, my name is Caio Xerri-Alves, design manager and partner here at BLAK. And before I continue, if you haven't done so yet, I'm gonna ask you to please subscribe to the channel by pressing the button below. And also, don't forget to press the bell to get notifications as well. Now, last week we talked about family rooms and all the do's and don'ts when designing a family room. If you missed last week's video, please click on the link above here. And now, on today, we're going to be talking about formal dining. What we're going to be talking about formal dining, we're going to be talking about all the essential parts to consider when designing a formal dining, such as symmetry, balance, the dining table, and the appropriate chairs. Why is it important to design a formal dining room following the rule of symmetry? The formal dining room, as I said many times now, is a formal. So you need to kind of have symmetry, and symmetry imposes a sense of formality to the space. So when you're thinking about having, furniture distributed around the room, think that you always have to think about the opposite side. So you have a buffet table on this corner, like in this image here, you have to have the same buffet on the other side. Also, the chairs, they have to be exactly symmetrical to each other. They don't need to be the same, you can be creative. They don't need to be exactly the same chairs, we'll talk about it later a little bit more, but they have to be symmetrical to each other. You cannot have like an asymmetric dining room because it's gonna break the formality of the room. There are ways of doing that, but it's a very, very advanced way of doing so, which I don't recommend if you're designing the room yourself. Now, talking about balance and harmony. As I said, with symmetry comes balance. The balance you're going to achieve in a room is by mixing materials. And that can be done by selecting the appropriate materials for the floor, which is normally the one that you're going to select for your whole ground floor. But say, for example, you have a wooden floor, your dining table should be considered with a natural stone like marble, just to kind of balance the materials. That provides a sense of harmony to the space, and you should always consider balance each other off. So if the floor is marble, you should perhaps consider having a wooden dining table or a glass dining table, again, just to mix warm materials with cool materials in order to achieve a sense of balance in your dining room. Just like in this image here, this is a clear example of a well-balanced dining room. Now, moving on to how to select the appropriate size dining table. Now, when you're doing your plan for your room, you have to consider that you always have to leave a minimum space of 1 meter for people to walk around the room, okay? A chair normally occupies half a meter, 50 centimeters when it's pulled out. So you have to always leave 1 meter behind the open chair in order for you to have enough space for people to walk around when your room is occupied with your guests. So always remember to buy the table accordingly to that room, because when you buy a table that's too large for the room, your room is going to feel cramped and claustrophobic, just like I mentioned when you're doing that in your formal living room when you buy a furniture that's too large for the space. And if you buy a dining table that's too small for your dining room, it's going to feel really empty and it's going to be wrong. So just use the gold rule of thumb to leave 1 meter of space around your dining table, considering the furnitures that you're adding that as well. Just like the buffet in this image here that you've got behind the dining table, you have at least 1 meter space for people to walk around. So those are the very important things to consider when selecting the table. The thing to consider as well is the appropriate size for the rug. The rug should be always outside of the chairs. You should avoid having rugs that are going to have 2 legs of the chairs off the rug and 2 legs of the chairs on the rug. So always remember to buy the rug that is going to anchor your dining room set to the space. I always recommend you to get rugs that are made of wool, because wool is actually easier to clean in dining room areas. Avoid getting delicate rugs like silk, for example, because they are going to, kind of age over time by being in an area that you have, food, people dining, moving chairs, etc. and so on. Now, what else we're going to talk about? The dining chair, of course. Now there's very creative ways of, getting the appropriate dining chair, but the most important thing when selecting the right dining chair for a room is comfort. You're going to have people sitting there for 3 hours, 4 hours. You don't want your guests to feel uncomfortable, okay? You're not in a meeting room. In a meeting room, you want the meetings to be fast, so you get a very uncomfortable chair. So people come in and they, after half an hour, they want to get out because you want things to move fast, right? So you go in a bank. That's why the banks, they have very uncomfortable chairs, because they don't want you to stay there for too long. They want you to sit, move on, and get out. So in a dining room, you should find a comfortable chair so your guests can stay there and enjoy the experience. So make sure you always try and sit on the chair and see if it's comfortable enough, especially for your back, okay? So now once you establish that, there's ways of mixing and matching. You don't need to have a long back rest like in this image for every chair. I like to have the corners of the dining room with a big high backrest like here, and then I would recommend this one here for the sides. Some people, they like to have a stool. I wouldn't recommend in a formal dining room to have a stool because it's formal, as I said, and a formal dining room is places that you have those really long, nice dinner parties that's gonna last for 4 hours. So I wouldn't really consider that. I would keep those stools versus dining chair ideas for a more informal dining areas, like next to your kitchen, for example, for your kids to have breakfast in the morning, but not for formal dining rooms. I think that's said enough. I hope you learned something from it. Now, let us know what we're doing right on the channel. And I know that, there is a lot of people sending us messages asking us to talk about color palettes and all that. They will be coming through as well. But for now, just let us know as well what we're doing so we can improve. And if you haven't done so yet, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.